Welcome to UK House, the home of creativity. They say time flies by when you're having fun, and it's really hard to believe that this is our second last session of the day. Croud is a global full-service digital marketing partner. Founded in 2011, it is a strategic partner to leading companies across 118 markets and spanning every industry sector, from retail and e-commerce to financial services and B2B. Now, as we adapt to a new reality, Sophie Wooller, Director of Digital Transformation, will be discussing why marketeers should view the removal of third-party cookies as an opportunity to reset, think about the bigger picture, and plan for the future. Once again, this is a live session, so please do submit your questions via the Slido chat to the right of the main stage screen. And don't forget to join into the conversation on social using the hashtag UK@CanLions. Welcome, Sophie, to UK House.
What a lovely introduction. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no, pleasure. We're going to go straight into it. I'm going to hand over to you for your presentation, and we'll come back at the end for some questions.
Brilliant. Thank you. So thank you again, and welcome everyone. It is an absolute pleasure to be here. The first test will be to make sure that my slides are moving on, and that has already passed, so amazing. As Aisling said, I'm here today to talk about the demise of third-party cookies and why this isn't a disaster, as some of the industry press would have us believe. Privacy is a hot topic for marketers, and privacy and the third-party cookie are inextricably linked. You sort of can't move for discussion, particularly in the industry press, but it's also become something that consumers are more aware of. And how we react to this and how we as an industry think about and behave in these scenarios is becoming increasingly important. This has been a long while in the making. If we think back to all of the revelations with Snowden in 2013, when he came to press and said that GCHQ and NSA were listening to us, through to the Cambridge Analytica scandal, the advent of GDPR in 2018, GDPR Day, 25th of May, will be forever etched in my memory, not least because it was the same day as my sister's birthday, but because of just the sheer scale of work that had to be undertaken to get every industry ready and aware of the changes that needed to happen. A litmus test for me for kind of how far something has got into the public consciousness is if my mum is talking about it, and my nearly 70-year-old mother was asking me questions about GDPR. This is now very much part of what everybody understands and is concerned about. Also then thinking about the battles to keep WhatsApp encrypted, and the FBI trying to get hold of information from Apple, all of the ITP changes. We're going to talk about that a little bit in a moment and what that really means. And the ICO recently coming out and saying that a lot of ad tech was not privacy compliant. Privacy, cookies, how all of this plays together is now part of how we operate in our day-to-day lives. And that's driven three big changes, I think. The first is that this has now become part of brand positioning. This is an Apple advert. They're very much trying to position the iPhone as the phone that respects consumer privacy. They understand that it is something that consumers are interested about, but they're not the only one. If we think about Brave as a privacy-first web browser, DuckDuckGo as a privacy-first search engine, this notion of privacy-first is starting to creep into our creative, creep into our brand positioning. It's also driven quite a bit of technology development. What this is showing you is some research by a company called Audience Project, which was surveying how many users were using ad blocking technology. Ad blocking exists because we have ads, and that in itself is quite new. The internet is not that old, remember. What this is showing is that if you look at Germany, for example, nearly a third of users in Germany use ad blocking technology on their desktop, and then slightly lower numbers in mobile, which is the table on the right. It's also driven, rightly, compliance with data protection rules and laws. And for consumers, how this particularly has manifested is the delight that are the cookie acceptance windows. So this is an example here from the ICO's own website. And yeah, consumers having to see this, organisations probably worrying about their cookie policies as well. It is now a different landscape. We have to be far more transparent with consumers about what data we're collecting and how we are using it. And this means that privacy is having a really tangible business impact. The first scarily enormous number first. I mentioned Apple ITP a couple of slides back. What that means, Apple, particularly for their iPhone and their operating system, have changed how you can access, how you can capture third-party cookies. And the impact for marketers, for advertisers of that, is just less data, and we can be less targeted in the adverts we put in front of consumers. An estimate of the impact of that for Facebook was that for Q2 alone, so one quarter, there was a potential impact of a $5 billion reduction in ad revenues. $5 billion, because of this one change that has been made to an operating system. A bit closer to home, or a bit of a smaller region, there's been 229 GDPR fines as of April 2021 for organisations that had not complied by that legislation. In the UK, companies like Ticketmaster, Marriott, BA, Experian have been on the receiving end of a fine. So really tangible financial business impacts. So what exactly is changing? I've mentioned cookies. A quick bit here says two types of cookies, and I don't mean chocolate chip and oatmeal. We've got first-party cookies, which are the cookies that are set by the website which you're visiting. So ASOS.com, for example, a first-party cookie is set by ASOS. And it's the third-party cookie that is going to be going away, and that is set by another party. So, for example, Facebook or Google. These third-party cookies can then be read or seen if a user goes to another website. So if they've been to ASOS and they then happen to go to, let's say, The Guardian, Google can serve an ad on The Guardian's website based on what a user had seen on the ASOS website. So these cookies are used for tracking, for targeting, and for measurement. And the big news from Google recently was that although they were going to be stopped, being no longer accepted in Chrome as of the end of this calendar year, it's now been pushed back to the end of 2023. So that was big news recently. The demise of the third-party cookie has a number of impacts on the fundamentals of our marketing industry. The first is that our targeting will be different, may suffer. We've got less available audience information, and our cookie pools will not be as up to date. That means that how we bid, how we pay for our digital advertising will be different as well. We know less about the person we're bidding for and therefore have to make different decisions. And effectiveness measurement is going to be impacted as well. We can no longer track that consumer journey in the same way. But not just for the industry, the consumer experience is going to be impacted by this as well. So two conflicting stats to start with. The first is that 44% of global consumers said that they would forego customized experiences in exchange for not collecting their personal data. But 47% of them said that the reason they're using things like ad blockers is because the ads they're shown are irrelevant. So it's a real dichotomy where, on the one hand, users don't want those personalised experiences, but they're also not happy to give us the information to make them personalised. And then also on the consumer experience point of view, those cookie banners I mentioned earlier, that we now have to be super thorough, loads of options and choices, really clear on what we're doing. 76% of people just ignore them and click accept anyway. So finding a way to make that consumer experience a bit better, a bit more interesting, a bit more user-friendly, I think is going to be a challenge for this industry. But everything's fine, right? I've already said that the third-party cookie that we rely on for measurement, for personalised experiences, it's been pushed back for 2 years, so we've had a stay of execution. Unfortunately, the new reality is already here. iOS, Safari, Firefox, all of those operating systems, browsers, do not accept third-party cookies, and a significant proportion of users navigate the internet in those ways. So the future is still coming, and we have to adapt. So what can we do? Well, first of all, I want to flag that this is an opportunity to reset. Everybody is in the same boat. And to stretch the analogy, the question is whether you're driving that boat or whether you are a passenger. So what are the things that we can do? There are tangible steps. The first is thinking about being privacy ready. How can we protect the quality of the data that you are accessing in a privacy compliant way and protect it so that once those third-party cookies go away, you can still talk to and still understand your consumers in meaningful ways. The second is building out your first-party data assets. Now, that doesn't mean starting a loyalty program. It can do, but for those brands that perhaps don't own the sort of direct relationship with their consumers, particularly for CPGs, FMCGs, you can still have a meaningful relationship, a meaningful first-party data relationship with your consumers, whether building your own website or through how you advertise and target them through other compliant means. So build that out in a meaningful way. And then thirdly, think about measurement. How can you look your CFO in the eye in 2 years' time and say, my marketing is working? How do you prove it is when we have to measure and understand value in now different ways with different methods? So what's the portfolio of measurement tools you can bring to give confidence in your marketing investment? And finally, to bring this back to perhaps something a little bit more creative, we are celebrating creativity after all. I think one of the reasons that I'm so excited about this opportunity to reset is that creative is going to really come to the fore. You can use creative to deliver those brilliant experiences even without the depth of data that we have with the current third-party cookie environment. So what I'm showing you here, believe it or not, is a tile. It is a grey tile. One of the retailers that we work with at Croud, and we tested how we can deliver brilliant creative to our consumers, in this example through the Google Shopping feed shopping experience. So if a user is searching for a grey tile, the Google algorithm in a compliant way knows quite a lot about them, and it will surface our ad we can bid to show that consumer this impression. So grey tile. What we then did though, and said, okay, here is a grey tile. What better creative can we bring than this slightly rectangular option? And so we tested showing that grey tile in situ, in this example, in a kitchen, and discovered that it had a 7% higher click-through rate than our base test, so the tile on its own. And from there, we said, okay, actually, what else can we do? What other creative options can we bring? And we were able to test this particular creative option, which is a grey tile in a bathroom. And that had a 15% higher click-through rate than the test. So cumulatively, about a quarter better, 25% better than the base. Now, the point of this example is that you can use creative to understand more about your consumers. So, as I said, building that compliant understanding of your consumer base. In this example, we've been able to understand that consumers convert better when it's shown with a bathroom. So that's interesting for us for future creative. But also it tells us where our consumers perhaps are using these tiles and the type of lifestyle imagery that they want to see, and how they are viewing and understanding our products. So the power of creative, not only to deliver brilliant consumer experiences, but to generate really useful insights, I think can't be underestimated. And then just a final positive note. Change breeds innovation. So this banner here is the first ever digital display banner ad that was served on October 27th, 1994 on Wired Magazine's, one of their websites. I think with a modern eye, there is perhaps something that can be done to the design. But all of the options that we now have available to us, the moving imagery, the ability for stuff to pop out of the page, just the design options that are out there, all of that has grown, has become available because we are innovative, because we are creative. And this new world, we will find other brilliant, innovative ways to get fantastic experiences in front of our consumers. So to close with a quick action plan, 3 things to go away and start actioning. The first is compliance. Ensure that your data processes, the way that you're capturing data for marketing purposes and on your consumers, are compliant with data legislation. Protect that baseline. The second is to start to think about how you build those first-party relationships. Is it through a CRM program, loyalty programs, or is it a more pragmatic approach and making sure that the way that you're marketing to people, you can get useful insights, useful data back from that? And then third and finally, creative at scale. Develop methods now that will allow you to build creative at scale and test it so that you can get those fantastic experiences out to your consumers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophie. That was incredibly insightful. Well, I have one question, which is maybe this isn't your world, not something that you deal with every day. Where would someone go to make sure they're on top of this, they get more information? Obviously, there's your website, which is going to have all of this information, I'm sure. But is there other sources that you would recommend for people just to make sure that they continue to learn about things like this?
Yes, I think it depends on the sort of the technical depth that you want to go into. The ICO website is actually a very good place to start for useful guides, advice about how you can start to action these things as an organisational level. For things that are more perhaps marketing specific, right down the other end of the technical spectrum, places like ClearCode, really good at explaining technically how cookies work. And some of the changes that are happening. And then the stuff in the middle, go to the industry press, talk to your agency partners, obviously come and talk to us. And there's just a wealth of information out there to get up to speed very quickly.
Thank you very much. We've run out of time, but you can connect with Sophie via the LinkedIn details that are in the chat. We're going to take another short break, but don't go too far as we're going to be heading to Bridgerton.